you're looking to dive into topics on how to live a happier, healthier, more fit, and long lifespan, then you've come to the right podcast. Living the Dream with me, Coach Damian Evans. Together, we will explore the topics on all things health, fitness, and wellness. Together, we will be lifelong learners on this journey to living the ultimate dream. What up, Dream Team? Coach D here, coming at you from beautiful sunny San Diego. And in today's episode, we will touch on a handful of topics that I found interesting this week. The goal for the Living the Dream podcast is to let our team do the work when it comes to learning about all things health, fitness, and wellness. Let us get our hands dirty. Let us search through what the experts are saying, and let us do the research. And then in turn, we will share it with you, the Living the Dream team, and we will teach you what is most applicable to you and what is most helpful to you, the busy learner. So today, we will cover a few things that I learned this week while on the path to being a lifelong learner. And instead of doing a masterclass episode where I break down one topic into a deep dive, instead I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes, the highlights version of what I've learned this week, and then I'll attach the source from where it came from in case you want to learn more. In this episode, we're going to talk about a YouTube video that I came across by a guy named Delaney. I had actually never heard of him before, but the algorithm gods, I guess they told me that this was something that I'd be interested in. So I watched the video, and it was titled 6 Things I Do Every Day to Stay in Shape. And I actually really enjoyed some of his perspectives, and I thought that we could all benefit from it. Next thing we're going to touch on, do you have any behavior that you are aware of that you'd like to change? Maybe as it relates to your body, your self-care, or self-talk, or self-love, your relationships, maybe as it relates to your stress management and or your ability to communicate. In order to change, you need awareness. And you need the ability to be intentional with your behaviors. Some experts say that after the age of 35, 95% of our behaviors every day are unconscious. 95% of our behaviors, unconscious, automated habits that we let drive our life. So how do we change if we're not conscious of our behaviors? Well, we can't. So we have to find awareness of the things that put us into this unconscious state. And the nervous system is the lens through which we see the world. So if your nervous system is always on high alert, just like a guitar string that is too tightly wound, then the body will behave in the same uptight manner. And what your body does, your mood and behaviors follow. And your ability to change, to control, to adapt to stresses will be less than optimal. So we're going to go over a great podcast episode that I listened to this week from one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, Ben Pakulski, host of the Muscle Intelligence podcast. Next, I'm going to share a quick little list from the guys over at the Mindpump podcast that they posted on their Instagram. It was titled 5 Easy Steps to Lose Weight Without Counting Calories. 5 easy steps to lose weight without counting calories. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about that. And then lastly, we're going to touch on physical activity and your mental health. What could they possibly have in common? Is there something that you could do to protect you from anxiety, stress, and depression? We're going to check out what one of my favorite authors on movement and stress resiliency says when she's talking about the topic of physical activity and mental health. Her name is McGonigal. But before we get to the topic of the day, I want to start by thanking the sponsors of this podcast. This podcast is brought to you by a new group that I'm leading called the Accountability Club. Very rarely do weight loss challenges or competitions work. I found it's way more important to focus on lifestyle change and everyday behaviors and choices, along with forming the right habits. The Accountability Club follows along with the 52 Living the Dream minisodes one at a time. We set small, attainable goals, and the club holds every single person accountable through public tracking, through a group thread where we can all communicate. And I also sprinkle in a little human psychology to get some skin in the game. Each person decides at what level they'd like to participate in, and they buy in. If they do not achieve their goal, they have to keep paying the club a monthly due until they hit their goals. And they are rewarded by hitting their goals by having their monthly dues waived. So we're going to open up room for the new members of the Accountability Club every 4 weeks. And if this sounds like something that would interest you, send me a message and I'll send you more info on how to start. You don't have to be a gym member. You don't have to be in San Diego. You can do it from anywhere. Thank you, Accountability Club, for sponsoring this episode. Another one of our sponsors is the music app Brain.fm. Use Brain.fm's functional music to help you focus, relax, meditate, and sleep better, using cutting-edge neuroscience to get the results you're after. I used Brain FM for years before I partnered with them. I truly believe in their product. I use it anytime that I'm creating an episode for this podcast, and I also listen to their deep sleep music every single night. My Oura Ring tracks my sleep data, and the difference is noticeable. Download the app on your app store and use the discount code CoachDamien_SD, all one word, CoachDamien_SD, to try the app for a free month and a discount off your first month if you decide to continue with your subscription. And this week's 5-star review comes from Mark Sneed42. Mark says, "Wow, I have really enjoyed listening to this podcast. There is so much knowledge in each episode, and has been an excellent resource for finding other podcasts and content involving all things health, fitness, and wellness. Super happy that I found the Living the Dream podcast." Thank you so much, Mark, for your support and kind words. And if everyone else would do me a favor, if you haven't already, while you're listening to this episode, if you haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to subscribe to this podcast, which will allow you to get notifications anytime we release an episode. But it also shows the algorithm gods that this podcast is worth a listen to more people. And this is a really good no-cost way to support the podcast. And if you want to scroll down and leave me a 5-star review, if you feel like we've earned it, I read every single one, and I appreciate the love and feedback. Thank you so much. And now on to the topic of the day. For anyone that has successfully gone from overweight to optimal weight, from tired and lazy to motivated, driven, and full of energy, from out of shape to in shape, they know that it requires a completely different mindset shift and an entirely different lifestyle. If you live how you always have, you will be where you are right now. In order to get somewhere that you're not, you have to change the things that you're doing now. And I recently watched a YouTube video by Joe Delaney, which I'll link up in the description of this episode, titled 6 Things That I Do Every Day to Stay in Shape. And I'm going to run through his 6 daily tasks that he says helps him stay in shape enough to lead a fitness channel online. Number 1, prioritize sleep. Sleep helps him recover from his training. It also gives him the adequate rest to attack the next day's activities, and it stops him from making poor food decisions the next day. If you're trying to look lean and muscular, you must be consistent with your training. When you don't recover well and you don't have enough energy to train, you will have zero enjoyment when it comes to being physically active. Your body's going to fight against you due to not having enough restorative sleep and recovery. And if you don't have enjoyment, or if it's always a battle when you train, you will quickly lose consistency, which puts a halt on any progress that you were hoping to see. He adheres to a strict bedtime. He wears earplugs and an eye mask when he sleeps, which I don't think are necessary, but it shows that he has a sleep routine, and he's created a sleep sanctuary for himself, and he has a ritual to tell his body that it is time for sleep. While earplugs and an eye mask may not be required, the routine and sanctuary and ritual definitely are required, in my opinion. So prioritize sleep. Number 2, he has some go-to staple meals. He has a few meals that are consistent in his diet. He doesn't track calories because he finds it boring and unenjoyable. Again, while it may be super helpful to track calories for a small time frame, for a couple of weeks or a month, just so that you can have an awareness of what an actual serving size of foods really are and how much energy or calories that serving size consists of, it's definitely not required forever. The only time that I think you should track forever is if you actually enjoy it. If you are a data-driven person who likes to follow rigid game plans and who looks at the data with curiosity instead of stress and anxiety, which most people end up doing. Otherwise, tracking until you can have a good idea of how many calories are in each food serving size, along with how many calories you can eat to maintain weight, how many calories you can eat to lose weight, and how many calories it takes to gain weight. Then you can shift to a more intuitive style of eating with large rules that you follow. Large rules like minimizing ultra-processed foods And prioritizing mainly whole foods with enough protein and adequate plant-based foods, along with nutrient-dense health foods that offer the micronutrients and vitamins that you need not just to survive, but to thrive. Now, if you're in a place where you're trying to drop your body fat percentage and you just can't figure out why it's not working, then yes, this comes back to awareness and tracking for a short period of time. And this could help you if you just track for a little bit of time, because obviously your awareness is not where it needs to be because you can't figure out what's happening. That was a little tangent there, but okay, let's go back to Joe's go-to staple meals. So if you want to keep a lean figure and maintain muscle mass, then it's going to help for you to figure out some meals that you know are going to have enough protein and with an appropriate amount of calories. This could help you keep this meal as a staple meal. This will minimize mental effort when thinking about what meals to prepare and how to consume. It's going to make things more streamlined rather than having to track the macros in every food for every meal that you eat. It just leaves you with less room to go off track when you have these go-to staple meals. One of his go-tos for breakfast is a protein shake with peanut butter and a banana bagel or porridge oats. He admits that neither of these meals in isolation are nutritionally complete, but the point he's making is he knows what's in both of the meals nutritionally, and in the macro sense, he knows what kind of proteins are in each meal. His brain pretty much auto-calculates so that he can more easily make decisions later in the day. Yes, it may sound like he's adding up macros in his head, but really he's just looking at foods and saying, okay, this food has good protein. This food has low protein. And it really doesn't require any mental energy or computing because he's put in the work in the past of tracking, and he knows that this can be a staple meal. So number 3 is planning for going off plan. There are times, and there should be times during the year, that you're going to go off your set plan. And this is when it comes to your physical activity and your nutrition. Special celebrations like birthdays or holidays, anniversaries, those kind of things. Now, here's the thing. Most of these celebrations are yearly, or at least most of these types of celebrations, you know that they're going to be coming months in advance. So, knowing that you most likely are going to be going off plan for these occasions, possibly moving much less and consuming much more, you can plan for going off plan. While it's super common for someone to go off the rails and then gain some weight on the scale and then punish themselves for doing what they did by strapping themselves to a treadmill or doubling up on their training regimen and refusing to stop until they vomit, this strategy is actually doing way more harm than good. You're compounding an overconsumption issue with a huge negative stress to your body's systems in which it thinks that it's trying to fend for its life, which it will, because your body's number one goal is survival. So don't be that person. Exercise is not a punishment for what you consumed. Exercise is a gift and a celebration of what your body is capable of. So instead of doing damage control, plan ahead and just take multiple days to spread out your food consumption and your exercise to better match your average. So more simply put, if we can put this in a more simple way, if you have an event on Friday, then maybe you take Monday through Thursday to move just a little bit more than your average. If you track your steps, add in 1,000 to 3,000 steps more per day. If you train, perhaps increase your intensity or your duration just like 10 to 15% harder or longer than you normally do. The key is small increases over the next few days, not one giant ass-kicking session that you're going to be crawling away from crying. One thing that I love to do is increase my weights and focus on lower reps, heavier weights for the week leading up to the event. This creates a deficit in which my body could really use more calories and more rest to repair from. Does that make sense? If I'm lifting heavier, if I'm putting a higher load on my body, then I'm going to need more calories to rebuild that muscle that I broke down, and my body's going to need more rest. Okay, cool. That way, this holiday or that special event is like a built-in recovery day. So where most people wait until after their day of excess to make up for it, what Joe and myself tend to recommend is preparing for it prior to it happening and doing it more gently and more spread out. Number 4, he bases his diet mostly on unprocessed whole foods. If the majority of your diet is made up of fruits, veggies, unprocessed meats, whole eggs, fish, and things of that nature, then you'll really find it pretty hard to gain body fat, at least if you're active and you lift weights regularly. He made it a point of saying he doesn't avoid things like white rice or pasta because if you can tolerate those things, it's okay. It doesn't require an extreme restriction to be lean and fit. There are levels of processing to think about with your foods. If you can't recognize what food group it came from, or you can't pronounce the ingredients on the back, then if you're questioning if it's a good food for you, you may be better off just searching for a more whole food option with less ingredients. But there is definitely room for you to eat foods that you enjoy and still be lean and fit. Let me say that again. There is definitely room for you to eat foods that you enjoy and still be lean and fit. If you're eating ultra processed, highly palatable foods like Doritos and chips and cookies and crackers, well, we've talked about this. These foods have been designed to put you into a craving spiral that very few people, including myself, and I'm not even that much of a foodie. I don't love food that much, but these foods are designed to do that to you. Even the most disciplined people are going to have a hard time not overeating those foods and then also succumbing to the cravings that they bring later. The key concept is to make things easy. It doesn't have to be 100% clean. In fact, it probably shouldn't. Unless eating 100% clean is how you prefer to eat, usually cutting things that you like from your diet because you want to be 100% clean, usually this causes you to desire that food item even more. And it essentially puts it on a pedestal. I've literally heard grown human beings saying, I can't have chocolate. I cannot have chocolate. I'm not allowed to have chocolate. Like, who's not letting you have chocolate? You're an adult. Then when these people go off the rails, they really go off the rails. Instead of just living by the 80-20 rule, and most of the time eating and living based off their health goals, there's a cost-benefit analysis here that you can consider. And sometimes being 100% on point requires more energy, more willpower for a very small, tiny increase in performance or results. It may not be necessary, or even it may be more beneficial in the long run just to do the 80-20 rule. Number 5, training to gain muscle. Lifting weights heavier than your muscles are used to is a signal to your body that your body needs to be stronger, that those muscles need to be stronger, and that more muscle mass is needed. Muscle is the tissue of longevity, and if I could give my friends and family and loved ones any gift moving into their advanced years, the one gift I would give them is more muscle. When it comes to most of the health, fitness, and wellness goals that I see, there are countless reasons to train for muscle, which we've gone over before, and Joe goes into his reasons why in the video as well, but we both agree, and I hope you do too, lifting heavy, lifting often, and eating your protein, the building blocks of muscle, you will notice the difference in a way that your body looks and feels. And bonus, you'll be setting your future self up for a more independent and capable future where you don't have to have people taking care of you. So number 5, training to gain muscle is super important. And the last one, number 6, go with the motivational ebbs and flows. Go with the motivational ebbs and flows. He pushes it when he's enthusiastic so that he can coast when he's not. There will be times when your motivation is super high, and there will be other times where you have no desire to exercise. Even the biggest fitness fanatic, even myself, even Joe, goes through these ebbs and flows. So understand that your motivation won't always be there. Set your habits so that your training system is automatic. And then when you lose the motivation, which will for sure happen, now you're falling back to the base of your habits formed, and you're going to coast, and you're just going to do the best you can until that motivation comes again, which it will. There will be something that comes up, and then you can kind of ramp it back up. And that's really how you avoid falling into that spiral of regression, fat gain, and just being more sedentary. It can just be maintenance and then bump up progress, and then maintenance and then bump up progress when you feel it. So these 6 things, if followed, allow staying in shape or getting in shape and staying that way to be much easier and to last much longer. Prioritizing sleep, having go-to staple meals, planning for going off plan, eating mostly unprocessed whole foods, training for muscle, and then going with the ebb and flow of motivation. Essentially, the goal is to put things into your life that allow for long-term consistency and to make that as easy as possible for you and enjoyable as possible. All right, moving on to the next topic. And this is going to be a topic of regulating your nervous system. Ben Pakulski, one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, he starts off his episode by talking about box breathing. Box breathing was made famous as a strategy used by the Navy SEALs to center themselves in the most crazy, high-stakes situation. It's used by athletes and high performers to focus. It's a 4 equal parts breath, usually starting as a 4 count. 4 count inhale, 4 count hold and pause, 4 count exhale, and another 4 count hold and pause. But it doesn't have to be 4 counts. It can be 5, 6, 7, maybe even 20 if you train yourself to get there. This technique is a slight stress to the body. If you've ever done it, you may feel what they call air hunger, which you think you're at the beginning stages of suffocating, but it's not suffocation. It's definitely uncomfortable at times, especially when the breath is being held after you exhale. But if you can kind of relax into it, you will actually slowly build up a tolerance to be able to handle more oxygen in the body and then allow you to take larger, slower, more efficient breaths. You are literally increasing your oxygen carrying capacity, and this is done surprisingly quick. As fast as just a few rounds of breathing, you will notice big differences and big adaptations to be able to breathe deeper and fuller. Ben does this style of breathing before he starts his meditation, before he does his yoga, and really whenever he wants to center himself. 4 equal breaths. In, hold, out, hold. He says that if you're having a racing mind, a crazy monkey mind jumping around, then this is a good strategy to dial it back under control and become more focused. The more you can train your body to do a breath hold, the more tolerant you are to carbon dioxide buildup. Carbon dioxide tolerance is important to, yes, short-term performance, but also to long-term well-being and the absence of anxiety. If anyone listening to this suffers from anxiety, Ben says that there is a 1-to-1 correlation between the ability to tolerate high amounts of carbon dioxide and not having anxiety. Said in another way, if you can hold your breath and accumulate and tolerate higher amounts of CO2, the likelihood of you having an anxiety attack or being overwhelmed by anxiety is greatly diminished. On the other side, the less tolerant you are to CO2, the more likely it is that you will experience anxious symptoms more drastically. So let's talk about this. Our nervous system is the lens through which we see the world. Your central nervous system consists of your brain and your spinal cord. Your CNS consists of your brain and your spinal cord. Then you have your peripheral nervous system. And your peripheral nervous system consists of the nerves, these little tiny wires that are made up of protein and fats. These nerves that branch off of the spinal cord and extend to all parts of your body. That is your nervous system. You have your central nervous system, your peripheral nervous system. The whole thing is called your nervous system. Your nervous system is the wiring between your brain and your 5 senses. Your body and brain perceive things through sight, smell, touch, hearing, and taste. We know the 5 senses. So regardless of what you're sensing, your nervous system can influence how it's ultimately being interpreted by the processing center in your brain. So if the body is in a stressful state all the time, if you're in a fight or flight sympathetic state all the time, then a lot of the input from your senses will be interpreted with that lens. The reptilian part of your brain that processes fear and whose main job it is to make sure that you survive, that part of the brain is going to dominate when interpreting these inputs that come through your five senses. And then on the flip side, if your body is in a calm state in which you are in your rest and repair parasympathetic state, then you're more likely to respond to the inputs of your senses in a same calm and relaxing way. The less likely it is that you will overreact or react in a fight or flight response. So the ability to control your nervous system is incredibly important and so incredibly powerful. Now knowing that, it begs the question, how? How do I better take control of my nervous system? In this episode, Ben talks about 3 things that you can leverage to put you into a more sympathetic, amped up, energetic state, or that you can put yourself into a more calm, relaxed, rest and repair, parasympathetic state. Those 3 things are your visual system, your respiratory system, and your muscular system. Sight, breath, and muscle contraction. Let's start with the visual system. If your visual system is in a wide panoramic gaze, so think when you're out in nature, you're in front of the ocean, or you're at the top of a really high mountain that you just hiked, and you're looking over this huge open area. That is panoramic for your visual system. You're seeing the big picture with these big dilated eyes. This is a very calming state. The nervous system tends to turn down. Now consider what happens if you're up on that mountain and you're a hunter and you're hunting. If you've ever been hunting and you're out in the wilderness, you're alert, but you're calm. You're walking around, you have this big panoramic view, and then all of a sudden, a big buck comes out of the brush. What happens to your visual system? It constricts extremely fast and it zooms in on that prey. When you zoom in with your sight, then what happens to your whole system? Your heart starts to beat and you get amped up and you're ready for that encounter. Your body goes in this fight or flight, ready, prepare, there's a target, let's go and get that target. This is called hypervigilance. Now, think about this evolutionary adaptation that we have and think about it in our current societal context. What do most people do as we're getting ready for bed? Well, some of us look at our laptops and do emails so that we can get ready for the next day. That adds a little bit more to our bucket of stress. Or maybe some of us are frantically trying to get our kids to bed, more stress. And then most of us, we sit down after a stressful day, an eventful day, and we just want to sit down and decompress. We want to stare at the TV or even smaller, a computer, or even smaller, a 4-inch cellular phone. How much more constricted and small of a target can you zero in on than a phone? Let's not even talk about what's on that screen. The most stimulating things that our human brains have ever encountered. But do you think that this is going to be a good thing for us to be scrolling on Instagram or checking our work emails, putting ourselves into a high arousal state right before bed? And then we wonder why we can't sleep very well at night. Yeah, interesting. So what should we do instead? Maybe less attention on one specific spot and let your eyes be in a more relaxed state to end the night. But on the other hand, what if you wanted to amp yourself up? What if you wanted to get ready for a presentation? Or what if you wanted to get ready for a workout that was really important or some type of competition? Well, then you'd want to narrow your focus on a specific point. You want to dial in and constrict your view. This kind of reminds me of when I used to watch Kobe play basketball, and it would be getting to a really serious point in the fourth quarter of the game, and he would be on the bench during a timeout, and his teammates would be trying to talk to him, and he would be so laser focused. He'd just be death staring one spot on the floor, not letting anything else distract him. Watch any high performer when they're in the flow. You'll see this. They are dialed in on the task at hand. They're not looking wide-eyed and looking around. They are using their visual system to amp up their nervous system. Whether they know it or not, they're doing it. Okay, so that's the visual system. Let's go to the next thing that we can use to leverage our state, and that is breathing. This is by far my favorite one. You can shift the state that you're in by increasing your breath rate or by decreasing your breath rate, the amount of breaths that you take in a minute. You can shift the state that you're in by biasing towards longer inhales or longer exhales. So if you can manipulate the length or the duration of your inhales or exhales, you can shift your state. There are countless breathing strategies, but the general rule for breath work is if you want to put yourself into a sympathetic fight or flight, amped up state, then you want to focus on your inhales. Longer inhales, more powerful inhales compared to the exhales. And you could think of this such as Wim Hof breathing. Wim Hof breathing really amps you up. Whereas extended exhales, longer and slower than your inhales, this is one of the best ways to calm you down fast. If you did an inhale for a count of 4, and then a pause for just 2, and then an exhale for a count of 6 or 8, 1 to 5 rounds of that, and you'll be feeling calm and relaxed. Double your exhale to your inhale. Oh man, you will be relaxed. Or you could do the physiologic sigh that Professor Andrew Huberman made popular, where you do a double inhale and then a nice long extended exhale. Do this right here. Take a big breath in, and when you don't think you can breathe in anymore, sip just a little more air at the top, and then just let it go as long and relaxed as you can. It could be out your nose or mouth. If you do that even just one time, you'll tell me that you feel the difference. And then the last thing that we can use to leverage our state is our muscle tone or our muscle contraction. So we have our sight, we have our breath, and then we actually have our muscles, our muscle contraction. Your brain and your nervous system are the amplifier, which your muscles are the speakers. Your brain tells the muscles when to fire and contract, and then when to let go and release. So think when your muscles are tight and contracted and tense, your nervous system is firing and telling the muscles to do that. You're in a stimulated state. So if you want to get yourself into an amped up state, then clenching your fists as hard as you can, or flexing the muscle that you want to be working, or doing something with an isometric static hold, maybe like a wall sit for your legs, or pushing against an immovable object as hard as you can, that is going to really put you into a sympathetic fight or flight state. This is going to amp you up. You're turning on as many motor neurons as you can. Now, on the other side of this, for me, this is why deep stretch restorative yoga at the end of the night has been such a game changer for me. It's the exact opposite of that amped up, stimulated, flexing, contracting, tense state. It allows me to sit in a deep stretch for minutes at a time, relaxing and really breathing my muscles into a more relaxed, melted, uncontracted state. And that's usually after being fired up all day long. So your muscle contraction, your tenseness of the muscles, they can help put you and shift you into a state. So if you're ever in a circumstance where you're not in the state that you'd like to be, maybe you're all amped up and you'd like to calm down, or maybe you're super calm and you need to be a little bit more energized, you now know 3 tools that you can use. You can even use all 3 of them together to help get you into the appropriate state. So when you're stressed out and you're in a fight face to face with someone, stop, dilate your view, get away from that zoomed in constricted view, dilate your view to something panoramic, look out in the distance. Maybe not if someone's about to fight you, don't do that. But if you're safe, look out into the distance and get a more dilated view. Unclench your jaw and your fists and do the physiologic sigh. A double inhale and a nice long exhale. If you're about ready to get ready for a PR in the gym, however, and you want to constrict your view, give yourself the Kobe Death Mamba mentality stare while doing some deep inhales and maybe doing an isometric squeeze of the muscle you're about to do to work, really sending the signal that you need all of your nervous system to work towards that goal. When you're going in for an early morning work meeting and you want to get focused, or maybe you're nodding off on a long drive home in traffic. Oh my gosh, have you ever done the death nod when you're driving home at night? That is some of the scariest thing that you could ever do. These could be literal life-saving tools to help you. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you use these, and let me know how they have affected you. I'd love to hear about it. Cool. Next, on to number 3. I want to share a quick list of 5 easy steps that you can do to lose weight without counting calories. And this is from the team over at Mindpump Media. If you're looking for a fitness and entertainment podcast, then the Mindpump podcast is the gold standard. They have the beginning portion of their episodes where they talk about current events, studies, their personal life. It's really entertaining. And then they get into the fitness questions at the end. At this point, I've listened to over 1,000 hours of their content, and they are definitely at the top of my favorite list. So their list of 5 easy ways to lose weight without counting calories is, number 1, avoid heavily processed foods, common theme here, and still eat as much as you want. Studies show eating a whole food-based diet automatically results in a 500 to 600 calorie reduction every day. 500 to 600 calorie reduction every day if you just avoid heavily processed foods. Your body's going to automatically do that. Number 2, drink 1 gallon of water every day. Staying hydrated reduces cravings and improves energy. And when you're drinking a gallon of water, you're kind of pushing a lot of the extra other stuff out. Number 3, don't eat while distracted. Don't eat while on your phone, in front of the TV, while driving. I know a lot of you do this while driving. That was a stat that I did not know, but apparently that's a thing. Doing this has been shown to naturally reduce calorie intake by 10 to 15%. Your body's satiety signals are more easily felt if you're not distracted. Number 4, aim for your target body weight in grams of protein. Here it is again, protein, and eat protein first in every meal. Protein and veggies is what I say. So aim for your target body weight. If you want to weigh 150 pounds, then you should be shooting for 150 grams of protein a day. This can come with supplementation, of course, in the way of a protein shake or amino acids, but really try to get it through whole foods the best you can, as much as you can. Number 5, walk for 10 minutes after your meals. Walk for 10 minutes after breakfast, walk for 10 minutes after lunch, and walk for 10 minutes after dinner. If you do this post-meal, this will reduce your highs and lows of blood sugar, thus helping reduce cravings. And I can guarantee you'll be adding movement to your day steps. If you can do 10 minutes after every meal, and that's the only change that you make, I guarantee you will see changes in your body composition. So avoid heavily processed foods, drink 1 gallon of water a day, don't eat while distracted, aim for your target body weight in grams of protein, and walk for 10 minutes after every large meal. Boom. Nice, simple list right there. What are your thoughts? Anything that you would add? Anything that you think that they got wrong or should change? Let me know your thoughts. And lastly, I want to leave you with a little motivation. I am currently leading a large group of people through our accountability club right now. And what's really cool is I get to hear from dozens of people at the same time how they're feeling. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating because I get to see this big picture view as each of them message me day after day, and they let me know how they're feeling and how they're doing. And when we first started this club on January 1st, and the first of the year, I told everybody, I said it multiple times. I said, over half the people that have New Year's resolutions will fall off by February. And then over 80% won't make it till March. I said it over and over. And here we are at the end of February and starting March. And guess what? I've had more people tell me that they've lost steam and lost motivation in this last couple weeks than over the last 2 months combined. We knew this was coming, friends. And I'm sure some of you are listening to this right now, nodding your head if you're listening live. We knew this was coming and we predicted that it was going to be here. So for those of you that may be finding trouble getting your training sessions in, or for those of you that may be feeling a little down, just not successful, let me read you a quote from the author of the books, The Joy of Movement, The Upside of Stress, and The Willpower Instinct. She is a movement specialist. She's a genius in this field. Her name is Kelly McGonigal. She was on my favorite podcast, The Model Health Show, talking to Sean Stevenson about muscles, and exercise and contracting your muscles and what all of that can do for your mental health. Let's listen to what she said. She said, quote, "I am interested in all psychology, all neuroscience, and I personally think that this is the most interesting discovery in all of science in over the last decade. In all of science. And this is that your muscles are endocrine organs that secrete hormones into the bloodstream that affect every system of your body. Your muscles, they secrete hormones and chemicals and proteins when you exercise that are also really good for your brain health." And one of the first papers that was published on this almost 10 years ago explained that when you contract your muscles, they literally secrete these proteins into your bloodstream that make you resilient to stress and protect you from depression. The scientists call them hope molecules. This idea that literally your muscles are manufacturing antidepressant molecules. And the only way to get them into your bloodstream, where they can then travel to the brain, is that you have to contract your muscles. Like, that's it. It's like a pharmacy in your muscles. And anything you do that contracts them, walking, hiking, running, dancing, weightlifting, swimming, anything, you're going to be dumping hope molecules into your bloodstream. That when they get to the brain, they work as an antidepressant and also help people recover from trauma. That's like a miracle. Because of course, it's wonderful when medications work for you. But for some, medications just don't work, and they don't do a full job in terms of helping you with your mental health. And the idea that your muscles could provide you with the equivalent of something like an antidepressant medication, that I think is phenomenal. Unquote. Wow, powerful. And most of us kind of know this intuitively. For all of you runners out there that have ever experienced a runner's high, or for all of you lifters out there that have ever finished a pain-free great lift, for all you dancers and Zumba people out there that leave the studio drenched in sweat and with a smile from ear to ear, we already know this. Movement is life. Movement in the ways that match our style creates happiness for us. Hope molecules. Next time you're in the dumps, next time you don't feel like going to the gym because you have no motivation, remember, you're just a few steps away. You're just a few reps away. A few hip dips and hip shakes away from a better mood. Exercise is a celebration of what your body can do. It's not a punishment for what you consumed. And that's it, my friends, for this week's episode. Each week, we're going to focus on sharing information that will help you with your health, fitness, and wellness journey. Share the knowledge that you gained today with your friends and family and hold each other accountable. If you enjoyed this content, it helps a ton if you could post on your social media stories a screenshot of this episode with one takeaway that you learned. And make sure that you tag me and share your journey. Tag me at liveinthedream_podcast or at coachdamian_SD. And let us know how this episode benefited you. Let us know what we missed. Let us know what we got wrong. Tell us what you do every day to stay in shape, how you regulate your stress and nervous system, how you lose weight without counting calories, and how you have had movement benefit your mental health. We want to know about it. Message us with any suggestions or tips that will help your Living the Dream team that we can discuss on future episodes. And I will be right here with you, working on making us stronger, happier, and healthier humans. Until next time, friends, keep living the dream.